many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry?
Aloha Hawaii, this is Poka Lainui and you are listening to Hawaiian Potpourri. The time now is 33 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock and it is the 26th day of August in the year 2012. Welcome to the program or welcome back to the program. We will get into our discussions. Let me say that we had just been talking about actually the application to some extent of exceptionalism to the Hawaii situation. And sometimes I do get caught up with very general concepts. And so I like it when in the participation of callers, they can ground me into specific applications of these concepts into what we have. And the last caller, when he had called earlier, had talked about the application of these concepts to Hawaii. And I thought that was very relevant, so that it's just not the things that we intellectualize with one another, but it actually has anchorage or foundation within our Hawaii experience. And hopefully this will allow us to overcome, to move beyond, to analyze and to be able to guide our society to that higher level of humanity and human existence as we bridge ourselves into our futures. Before terminating the last half hour of the program, the caller had wanted to talk about what happened in the Hawaii Supreme Court, and I assume that it is the caller on the line waiting to be brought on. So we're going to be talking about the effect of an appeal brought by a Ms. Kalekini into the court system, suing both the state of Hawaii as well as the city and county of Honolulu for proceeding with the development of rail and the construction of rail without completing all of the surveys that was required to be done. And as a result, the Supreme Court reviewed it and had some very clear words about it. Let's go to our telephone lines. Aloha caller, welcome to the program.
Yeah, Poka.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so in this case, Paulette Kalekini argued that not completing the entire survey before the project was begun jeopardized the integrity of archaeological and burial sites because they foreclosed on other options such as not building rail or completing the survey first and then designing the route.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I wondered about is how does not completing the entire survey jeopardize the integrity of the sites? Because what has been done is before construction, a segment would be surveyed, rather than having the entire route surveyed. But since there's a survey being conducted before the work is begun, if in fact that's the case, that the survey is done before the work is begun on a segment, how then is the site's integrity jeopardized?
Yeah, well, two things I think what she was saying. One is what the law says, and two is the impact of the violation of the law. First of all, she was saying the law says that the entire area must be surveyed. And in this case, rail affects the entire 20-mile area. So you cannot begin your construction until you survey the entire area as is required by the law. The Supreme Court agreed with her on that point, saying that you cannot truncate or break it up into 4 sections as the city and the state attempted to do. And so the Supreme Court says violation, clear violation, and all 5 of the justices found in that case. And as a result, essentially ordered that the circuit court enter an order to stop the construction from continuing because it's a violation. The second point that you raise in how does that affect the integrity of the burial sites, what she was saying is that as you continue to spend and build up political momentum to develop the rail, because of the expenditures in the earlier phases, when you really hit Kaka'ako, where the vast majority of grave sites will be found, at that time to suggest that you look at other options, it will be overwhelming to support the continuation because you spent several billions of dollars. And so rather than being placed in that case, and the idea that, well, you can go around these burial sites is, engineering, on the basis of engineering, it's idiocy. Because when you build a steel elevated rail, you're not going to be able to turn or twist or bend that steel by more than a foot in terms of its footing. Now they were suggesting, well, we can go 100 yards this way or 100 yards that way, and that's silly, that's not accurate. So what they will eventually do is dig up the graves rather than finding other alternatives, such as no rail to begin with. So she was saying that will prejudice the Hawaiian practitioners or the concerns for the burial, because at that point it would be overwhelming. So essentially those were the 2 points that she came out with, and it seems that the Supreme Court adopted both points.
Yeah, they sure did. 5-0. So now it has to go back to the circuit court, and it will take not just months to complete such a survey. It will take more than that.
I think it will take more than that, and to do an appropriate survey, if they say, oh, it'll take just a week or 2 or whatever it is, then the next question is going to be, if that is really the case, why didn't you do it at the beginning? Why isn't it completed yet? You see, so it's going to be hard for them to run around it. It may be that added, what do you call it, the straw that broke the camel's back, very similar to the super ferry. It's not a question of whether you support or not support the super ferry. If the law is a law, why should you make exceptions to, as Ben Cayetano would put it, to the major power brokers in Hawaii? Should they be exempt from the law? The labor unions, the bankers, and others who are associated with this whole shenanigan? So the Supreme Court is saying, don't bother us about the politics. What is the law, and let's apply the law. So it's very interesting to see what has happened in this case.
Well, she said that she believes that it was the city's plan to just do as Carlisle has been doing,
Mm-hmm.
And then you reach a point, hey, like you said, it's overwhelming. I spent so much, right?
Yeah. And it's a saying.
They just moved the sites. They just moved the EPA.
Yeah. So what she is saying is essentially what Carlisle and Caldwell had said to Ben Cayetano in an earlier debate, saying that it's too far in advance. There's nothing that you can do to turn it back. And that's the same kind of argument. This has gone too far. We cannot turn it back now. And then they're going to throw in all of the arguments about in the interest of the people of Oahu, the money spent, the federal monies. They even told Ben, what are you going to do when the Fed send you a check? You're going to tear it up? You're going to send it back? These billions of dollars? So they're playing the power game rather than analyzing appropriately what the law is. And it's a shame for Carlisle, being a well-known practiced attorney, to allow that foolishness to occur.
Yeah, it's really time and the circumstances really have revealed. And for him even to have picked a fight with Ben Cayetano, it's really reckless, huh?
I think there was some recklessness, but it started not only when Ben jumped in the race, but it started, you got to go back to the Hanneman administration, you got to go back to the Lingle administration, and the formulation of essentially a conspiracy or forming a cahoots between other parties who wanted to come in and take advantage of building this rail. Now we have two more. We have two more callers. You've instigated all lines taken up.
Okay, Poga.
So let's see what the other callers have. Thanks for calling and introducing the subject or reintroducing the subject. Take care. Aloha. And we go to our next caller. Our telephone number here is 524-1080. Aloha, caller. Thank you for waiting. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
You know, this is ridiculous, this environmental survey looking for burial sites. They're going into an area which is high density. Roads have been built, buildings have been torn down, buildings have been rebuilt. Are they going to tear down a building prior to putting a post or dig up a road to see if there's some burial sites there? Does this woman, Kelly Keeney, have proof that families have remains buried on this route? But the crazy thing about it is that this is a high-density area that's been built and rebuilt with roads, and all they're going to do is drive some pilings in, spaced throughout the route. Of course, when they're going to build the stations, you know, has Kelly Keeney gone to Kaka'ako where they've built all these condos and they're still building and shopping centers and big boxes out? And has she done anything about stopping that? Have they done a search for bones in these areas? Like they found when they built the Kmart on Kamoko Street. And perhaps if I had kupuna that were buried in these areas, I hope they put the building over the grave site and leave the bones where they are, where they're put originally. And if there's some bones where they're putting the big columns in, put it in a box and put it back in the ground where the columns going good and bury it in concrete. There it will remain forever where they have been, presumably in the past. So it's craziness. This is a modern time. If you find bones, move it, replace it, and put it somewhere else. Especially if someone can identify that as family, say through DNA.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, you still there? Okay. Well, the question I would have is, if the law was formed around a sensitivity of bones, Hawaiian bones especially, and it was a measure of to what extent should progress be allowed to overshadow or overcome or bury over historical or pre-existence in Hawaii. And the decision was made, no, we have to have a balance. We have to have at least a survey to tell us what we are doing with regards to the bones. And after the survey, if we discover what is there, then we need to go through an appropriate, respectful process of disposal of the bones. Now, this has been a legislative policy, a decision that was made by the legislature, which is appropriate for the legislature to make. To the caller, if you disagree with the idea behind it, then that should be part of the discussion. But having at least at this point reached a decision, and unless that decision is changed, the underlying question is, should the laws with respect to that policy be followed, or can it be avoided because of the press of development? And the Hawaii Supreme Court said very clearly, you follow the law. Okay. All right. So I'm sorry that it's not a discussion or any further discussion by the caller. But if you would like to call, there may be time for you to call and sharing your opinion. 524-1080 is our telephone number. Let's go to our next caller. Aloha, caller. Oops. Here we go. Nope, that didn't get you on. All right. What is it? What's the problem? Okay, I'm having some problem getting this particular caller on, and I'm trying to put you on the air. And so, caller, please call back. For some reason, that particular line, I was not able to get you on. Okay, let's see. Aloha, caller. Welcome to the program.
Hello, I'm calling back in response to some of the calls. First, one of the things that makes this show so rich is that you have so many different viewpoints. And to the last caller, I want to say thank you for calling in, and I could detect some passion and genuine feelings, and I want to thank him for expressing that. But I could not disagree more, and that's what makes the show good, is that we can respectfully articulate our beliefs and feelings and, then discuss how we disagree. What is crazy about the situation is if we just simply allow government officials to ignore the law and to proceed with their own ambitions, with their own interests. And so I do agree with the point you made, Polka. The second point is I constantly look for ways that we, the people, not the politicians. See, we have become addicted to the acquiescence to what politicians say and do without really challenging them as a community of people. And the way I look at it is there may be a halt to the construction based upon the Supreme Court in the state of Hawaii decision. The challenge for us is to provide an alternative way of thinking about the environmental problems that these traffic situations are causing. And, when we start talking about alternatives, people are too ready to knee-jerk reactions about people who are trying to make suggestions. Let me make some suggestions and ask the listening audience to resist immediately condemning the suggestions that are being proposed and rather talk about their own suggestions. There's no question that this dependence on fossil fuels and the congestion on the highways and the destruction to our environment is a crisis in Hawaii. There's no question about that. Now, what alternatives could we use? We could become a model for the nation, the United States, by doing maybe three things. One is to discuss, develop, and employ a wellness initiative in Hawaii that involves people who are in relatively close proximity to increase the use of bicycles in order to get to work. Secondly, we could look at a way of creating community by working with churches and labor unions and community agencies and maybe start a separate entity that would seek money and buy 1, 2, or 3 vans where people could pay a reasonable fee that could be directed on a small scale to bring people from Waianae, from different parts of Oahu, and to cut down on the traffic. The third thing we could do is have ministers and priests and rabbis and union officials discuss how we will form a coalition to do much much more partnering. You know that I in the DIE, individualism, if you look at traffic, you have so many cars with just one person driving it, going to work. So looking at ways of connecting with religious, trade unions, businesses, independent organizations so we can partner. The fourth point would be is to solicit requests from the public to the University of Hawaii, to Punahou, to Iolani. These are three major institutions that continue to work on archaic time schedules. How can we ask and formulate a plan and implement it that would have time flex? So we would have classes on weekends, much more classes, more community service classes, more classrooms in churches and trade union organizations and businesses. So what I'm suggesting is this is an opportunity. Yes, it's a crisis, but it's an opportunity for we, the people, to come together. We've talked about on a 5-point plan the issue of the environment. This may be one way of taking advantage and demonstrating the responsibility to propose from the people collective strategies to dramatically cut down, and perhaps having a goal of cutting down traffic by 30%. We could make this a model for other countries, other societies. And so I invite the listening audience to continue discussion about this issue, and perhaps more importantly, how can we come together to address the crisis that's environmental and transportation? I'll take your comments off the air.
All right. Thank you very much. And I must say that there's very little to comment for two reasons. One, you had been so complete in your explanation about other possibilities, and second is the time. I'm looking outside and I see Carol Cox ready to produce his programs. We have less than 4 minutes on this program, but I think this is an excellent opportunity, and it just shows that there are other possibilities besides steel on steel rail. And that's the whole idea of this exploration of other possibilities that is being suggested previously. I'm sorry I'm not able to give any more comment. I'm going to take one last call, and then we're going to go off the air. I'll be back next week for further programming. But let's take this call. Aloha caller, you have some comments to make?
Yeah, one last comment. Taking 15 to 20, 30% cars on the road, we can already do that, but nobody wants to do it. There's 15, 20% people on the road, no insurance, no driver's license, no safety sticker, go on, and this can be coordinated with the Department of Motor Vehicles and the insurance company to get these 15% of drivers on the road with no insurance and lock their car up until they get insurance. That's one way to get 15% off, but they don't have the courage to do it. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for your call. Aloha. As he's suggesting that, I'm saying it's going to be very rough for us guys out in Waianae, where you would probably eliminate 50% of the vehicles. It's not only insurance, but it's not meeting the the safety check, or somehow not being appropriately paid up, or the lights may not work properly, and the rest. And there's a form of, I guess, insurance, or a form of meeting the expectations of the law, and it's a localized form, and it is the word, normally it's the word uncle, and at times it can be the word auntie. You have a lot of these young folks who are driving, and they're driving vehicles that they're not able to afford to fix. They need to get to work, or they want to go to places, or whatever the situation may be. When they are stopped by the cops, this is the technique. They turn to the cop, they open their eyes very bright, and they say, "Oh, uncle, how are you?" And yeah, I was just going home, uncle. Yeah, no. After that, no, we're not going to drive. We're just taking the car from here, and then we taking it over there, and then we're just going to leave the car. The cops understand the situation. Maybe they are being abused by it. but they let the kids go. Anyway, they have found it to be an effective method of, avoidance of circumventing the law? I don't know. And this brings us to the end of this program.
Kaulana nā pua o Hawaii Kupa'a mahope o ka aina Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino Pala pala anunu me ka paka Pane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave Koku ana honoa o Pilani Ka ko'o mai kaua I o mano Pa'apu me ke oni o ka kuhi hewa Aolea e kau I ka pulima Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi Ho'ohui ai nā ku ai hewa I ka pono sivila a o ke kanaka Aole makoa e mina I ka pu'ukala o ke au puni Ua lava mai